Hi, I'm Shur-ēē Tay-bur. I'm the founder of Energy Healing Arts. Today, I'm going to talk to you about how to end a viral infection before it comes into your physical body. Again, if you've watched our other videos, you'll recall that we have an energy body. Our energy body is made up of an astral field, an auric field, causal bodies, and our etheric body. And these are interconnected in the most miraculous ways. And our field can run beyond the outstretched, when our arms are outstretched, beyond the ends of our fingertips. Some people have their fields are extremely expanded. And as one becomes more and more aware of their sovereignty and aware of how their presence in other spaces is affected by having your field far reaching or extended beyond your fingertips, the more you will likely begin to understand the importance of keeping it close to you. So today what we're going to talk about is what happens when your field encounters energetic conditions that either call in or convey outward for infectious fields of intention to come to you. Once an infectious field of intention comes to you, it comes into your field and typically looks for your mind planes, your emotion planes, your physical planes, your spirit planes, and your mental planes. Because once it can find those very specific planes, particularly the ones that are closest to your face, to your cranium, to your shoulders, to your upper back, and to your lungs, then the more rapidly they can deprecate your capacity to understand that you have encountered a malicious condition. So they'll look for those areas within your field very quickly. If you've suffered trauma, and most of us have, and it doesn't have to be trauma in the way you think is awful. It could be an emotional encounter that caused you tremendous sadness, one you expected you resolved fully, but that still has energetic information in that plane. And when that occurs, and that information could be decades old, you may have no idea it's there and no felt sense about an event that caused information to be in your field or in your plane or in spaces within your energy body. You may have had no recall that that even occurred, but if energy information exists in any of these places in the form that resonates or vibrates on a traumatic scale, which could be almost nothing to significantly vibrating on the scale of trauma. If it does, if you have these spaces, these fields of information, these fields of intention, these fields that carry capacity to call in fields of infection, will come to those areas most quickly. Once they get to those areas within your body, your energy body, they begin to look for other vulnerabilities. And they are intelligent. And they are intelligent in the way that they know what a vibration of trauma feels like, what a vibration of sadness feels like, what a vibration of feeling isolated, what a vibration of feeling like you don't matter, what a vibration of anything other than your highest, most perfected life feels like. So they go after the most vulnerable areas within your energy body first. Then they begin to go after whatever else vibrates in such a way that says you are not at the highest level of satisfaction, happiness, practicing your best self, which could mean exercising your your gifts of performing your purpose in this lifetime. It could mean that you're experiencing a little spell of sadness, and they will find it in a heartbeat. And this is life. This isn't new. This is the way life always has been. We just are unaware of how energy finds its way into our body. We're also unaware, most all of us, that before you get an infection, before you get a virus or a bacteria, a syndrome, or a pain, an itch, a twitch, a poke, a prick, anything within your physical body, any experience, any expression of contact to your physical body, what happens prior to that is that energetic fields come to your energy body, finding the place that resonates the most vulnerability. And we'll talk about vulnerability and how we can resolve that so we are affected less and less and less. But today, the most important thing is to help you as a conscious and cognizant person remember in a way that you may never have understood cognizantly, but that your brilliance fields, your genius fields, your intelligence fields knew, because you came here into this lifetime equipped, knowing how to end, how to prevent, and how to resolve conditions that come into your field. We come into normal families. We come into families where people have been hurt. We come into families where there may not be an understanding of how to best raise a baby human and how to appreciate the baby human as a real person from the day of birth throughout the parenting process. When this happens, a person suffers harm. Now, if you've suffered tremendous harm, you could be going, "You've got to be kidding me." I do understand that personally. However, I know that it begins with hurt senses and hurt feelings, sometimes at a level that the child or the person, adult, doesn't even realize is painful. And so what happens is, little by little, we become desensitized to what real trauma truly is. And before you know it, you're an adolescent and you're saying, "Well, that wasn't as bad as the other time," or "that wasn't as bad as this other condition that occurred to me, so I can get over it." And then what happens is these experiences land in your emotion planes and fields and spaces and hidden spaces within your energy body. And when we minimize, naturally, especially most of us grow up being taught to tough it out, don't cry, don't, quit thinking about that thing, because that's how you get over it. But it isn't. That is how you end up becoming a young adult and an aging adult through your 20s and 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, whose harm and problems, felt sense injuries, and hurt feelings, harmed aspects stacks up. And we think nothing of it because this is the way we've lived our whole life. We believe the best way to deal with something is to decide no problem, is to decide it's not an issue. And once we decide this isn't hurting me, this isn't going to hurt me, no, out, guess what? If we aren't resolving the energetic information that came with it, it sits there. It sits and it also resonates and brings in more of the same vibration. So then more trauma at any level, very small or quite significant, begins to come in. And you'll see people, if you just think about this for a minute, people who suffered maybe not the most, what is a perfect home, right? What is the perfect parenting home? I have an idea about it. I missed that mark. I did my best, and I missed that mark because I didn't have a model of it. But I have an idea today at my age, as I've observed parenting that looks just perfectly beautiful. And even in that brilliant parenting, children's feelings are harmed because we've lived for centuries believing children's feelings resolve. We don't even think about it. But if we knew for 1 second that one tiny little word you said to that 3-month-old infant settled in a space where information resonates, which is everywhere with us, and in every way, energy resonates. So one little tiny tot hears a word that his parents think is funny because they don't understand that the energy body knows it's not 90 days old. The energy body is filled with very, very ancient wisdom. This is what we don't understand. I hope we continue to grow in a desire to understand it. I hope we keep growing in a desire to know why we get sick, why we get depressed, why we get in a funk, why a word in a single song triggers a cascading effect that sets us back in a way we didn't even realize how it began with that one word in that one song that for some reason we are attracted to. Fascinating, isn't it? Because our body is a genius, brilliant, intelligent creation. And the more we understand it, the more we can be free of losing our options, losing choice, being sick, attracting information in the form of an energetic condition that sabotages us, which can turn into years of pain, physical pain, years of failed relationships, a deteriorating self-confidence, which only opens up other doors. And most of us know what that looks like. And we know people who have suffered it, but we don't realize how it is affecting us. So we enter a generation, we enter a time when this cascading effect became manifest in the form of many kinds of infectious diseases. Whoa, I just went from here to here like that. What does that mean? Well, let's explain that for a moment. So a cascading effect occurs generation after generation. So let's just start with mom and dad, okay? Mom has a family that grew up on a farm that was incredible, provided everything for them. But 8 children were forced to work the farm. 8 children had to get up before the crack of dawn, do things every other child had to do. Then if they were lucky, they went to school. And if they were lucky when they came home, they got to do their homework. But if the farm called them, then the moment they got home, those books hit the counter, they ran outside, they worked until they could hardly keep their eyes open. They sat at a dinner table with a mom who'd done this all day long, who had to get 8 kids fed, and a husband who in those days was very much involved in everything except supporting that emotional level of understanding what's happening at the dinner table. I have friends who have 13 brothers and sisters, some who had 19 siblings. That's a lot. I had one. So it's not so much about How many? It's about the emotional, mental understanding of the need of one person, who might be one, who might be three, who might be 12, who might be 15, who might be experiencing what every other 15-year-old does, while the squeaky wheels get the attention at the table. Now, this seems benign, right? It isn't. That's how easy information starts to enter into our fields. So, for instance, I'll talk about my own mother's family. They had 8. They had an alcoholic father and a beautiful mother. Well, the father was beautiful, but he was an alcoholic. And I don't understand what happened to him as a young person, but he was also a rageaholic, also a narcissist, also extremely abusive in every way, not one, every. And a beautiful little mom, very little woman, who held the fort down the best she could. All 8 children grew up with various different conditions, various different ways of dealing with the world. All are extremely wounded, and it showed in their parenting. Now, let's just pause that there. What happened to grandma's family? What happened to grandfather's family? How'd they get here? How'd they do that? My mother's mother had a beautiful family too. She was born in 1916. By 1931, she was pregnant, 15. That's how they did it on the farm. That's how you did it in a world where you got married and you got away by getting married, or you began your own family so you could have a family in the way that you wanted it. Now, all of this sounds like, oh, this is so old-fashioned. You know, here you are, 25 years old, perhaps listening to this, 40 listening to this, and you grew up urbanly and you grew up with a lot of money. Then this might not translate, except your ancestry also comes from a farm. At some point, we all did. And because we all did, we come from a history of hard work. We come from a history of being ignored at a level that the human psyche, that the mind planes, that the emotional planes, that the mental planes, physical and spirit planes needed understanding, needed a safe place to talk about what was happening in their brain, in their mind, with their body, and what was going on as all of that occurred in a world and in a time when you didn't talk about it. So we have history, and this history makes its way into our life in 2023, okay? So we sit here, a product of many generational ways of treating babies, many generational ways of teaching young children that they don't matter, that children are to be heard. Excuse me, I got that wrong. That children are to be seen and not heard. You talk about a psyche bust. You tell a child that through their whole childhood. And depending on how they came into this life, they grow up believing they don't matter, because no one said, well, look, when you get to be about 12, some things are going to matter. Like, you know, we've talked about how bad sex is, but if you start feeling feelings that you don't understand, you need to come to me so I can make sure you don't get yourself in trouble. We don't talk to our children today that way, most people, because we have more education. But that is the sense of how it was a generation ago, and almost every generation before that. Here's the problem. Children matter. Tiny, brand new in the hospital, babies who make this tragic, traumatic escape through the birth canal. Oh my God. That child needs its mother and father, and it needs the most sweet, kind, loving words. It needs to remember it came here by choice, and that two people, whether they're together or not, are so excited for the birth, for the life, for the opportunity to guide this little one who is a whole person through their entire life, 1 second at a time. Yes, we're talking about how to end a virus by talking about what happened when you came. How did the resonance of what happened as you exited a birth canal, as you exited a C-section, as you entered into this world, what happened? What were the very first violations that we would go, oh my, this is the way it is. This is how birth occurs. Surely God prepared us for this. Surely we came here prepared for that trauma. Maybe some of us, maybe most of us didn't. Maybe what happens in a delivery room needs to be reevaluated, because this is where we pick up our very first traumas, unless you had a traumatic pregnancy, unless you had a traumatic incubation process, which many of us did. And then the child picks up trauma through the incubation period of pregnancy. To understand the concept is critically important to understanding how we start ending the conveyance of information from our energy body to other resonant energies in the collective. Because when it conveys its trauma into the collective resonant energy will come. Be sure of it. And then it starts building its own home in our very important fields, spaces, planes, and hidden spaces. Your life, this physical body, is only as capable, is only as powerful, is only as possible as your energy body is fully sovereign. So we come into this world not sovereign. When do we become sovereign? If we come into this world through a natural birth process, and by that I mean a vaginal birth, a cesarean birth, let's just say it's a standard, all went good process. Trauma occurred. How do we end this? How do we end this? We can blame nobody, right? Because it's not something most are aware of. How do we go back? How do we end what began a collective home throughout our field, throughout our energy body for disease, for infection, for diagnoses we do not want? How do we stop? Well, this was video 1, and I'll see you in video 2. Thank you for watching.